Hello friends, my name is Shayla and today I'm here to talk to you about the fact that it is important to read a myriad of genres to make you a more well-rounded reader. Now, I know we've been talking a lot about diversity in the community, but I've been really wanting to talk about diversity in genres, not necessarily in characters, in all those kind of things, because different genres of literature have different things to offer. So I really wanted to get on here and talk about that today and talk about ways that I have slowly been diversifying the genres of books that I've been reading and my experiences with that. So this year I decided to read a classic a month, 6 nonfiction books, and to read more fairy tale retellings because last year I read a couple and I really enjoyed them, and just to broaden my horizons and be more open-minded to books in general. And I can tell you now, 9 months into the year, that I am so glad I did. I've really enjoyed reading a bunch of these classics that I'd heard about and just not read, and I've really been enjoying the experience of rereading some of my favorites in that realm as well, because it's been way too long since I've picked them up. The benefit of reading classics is textually, like in the text, the writing is so lyrical, and it's something that I feel is missing in modern literature. And so to read classics and get that lyrical writing is beneficial for me. I end up really enjoying the lyrical writing. The stories might not be happy all the time, or they might not be super fast paced. They're generally a little bit slower, but I do enjoy the lyrical writing of it all because the writing is why I'm reading the book. I think it's important to find lyrical writing, whether that's poetry or classics, whatever you find lyrical as you read it. I think it's important that you incorporate that into your reading more because I benefit from it deeply. Intellectually, I feel like I've grown a ton this year. That might have a lot to do with the fact that I have a very intellectual and smart husband, but I think that's also to do with the fact that I have added more depth to my reading. Now, I also want to talk about the difference between reading YA novels and reading adult novels. That's a huge discussion on BookTube and has been for a very long time. So I think there's benefits to reading both. As a young adult fiction was a completely different thing. I mean, it was like spooky little thriller novels or like Sweet Valley High, like the YA genre was nothing like what it is now when I was growing up, because I'm in my 30s and it's just completely different. So I actually go back and read YA novels now because they are very enjoyable to me. I enjoy the quick pace of them. I enjoy that a lot of times the series aren't quite as long as some of your good adult series, and it's just really enjoyable to have a fun quick read as an adult when you don't have tons of time to sit and devote to reading. Now, the difference between adult novels is I feel like I get a lot more out of adult literature than I do out of YA. I get plenty of enjoyment out of YA, but if I'm looking to learn something, I go more towards adult fiction. Whether that's fantasy, sci-fi, it doesn't really matter. All of that, I feel like in that adult genre, as an adult, I relate to it a little bit more, so I feel like I learn more in my experience than I do from YA at this point in my life. YA is really fun, and I will probably never stop reading it because I've found series that I love and enjoy, like the Lunar Chronicles and the Throne of Glass series, and all of these other series. Like, they are just fun, and I really enjoy them. And through this channel and through my Instagram account, I've been able to meet a lot of authors, adult and YA both. And as people, they're no different. They are just people like you and me, and they're wonderful. And I love my author friends. They are fantastic. I've gotten to meet one of my favorite authors this year, and he talked about how he has to have balance in his writing because he releases adult novels and YA novels. He just finished a middle grade series. This is Brandon Sanderson I'm talking about. So he just finished his Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarian series, and he had finished a YA series earlier this year. So he's got another YA series coming out while he's working on all of these adult projects that require a lot more of his time because they are long series and they are dense books. I mean, this little brick is book 1 in what's going to be a 10-book series. He's currently working on book 3. It keeps inching up more and more. I can't wait. I'm super excited. I still need to read book 2, which is on my list to do by the end of the year. But, you know, he devotes tons of times to these books. But he's also, when he's got a little bit of downtime or he's feeling a little stuck where he's at, that's when he's writing his YA series, his middle grade series, all of those kind of things. And it's fantastic. One author can write very diversely and write for different audiences. And I do think reading middle grade is also important because as adults, we will be raising children and we want to know what they're reading and we want to recommend awesome things that are fun for them to read, like the Alcatraz series, like Percy Jackson, like Harry Potter, all those big fun series. We want to be able to recommend to them with confidence because we know that what they're reading is okay, that they're not going to be scarred for life by what they've read, and all of those kind of things. So I think that's super important. I also want to talk about reading different formats of books. You have your classic literature, of course, and then you've also got plays, you've got graphic novels, you've got manga. There are all of these different formats. You've got poems, and I think it's really important to make sure that you're reading in different formats because you can find that you really enjoy them. Just this year, really, I actually started reading manga. And I've really enjoyed my experience with manga. I find the stories very enriching. I find the artistic style beautiful. And it's just been a fun ride for me. I also read my first graphic novel this year, which again was a Brandon Sanderson graphic novel that I got for my birthday. And that's a format I had never really played with. I mean, as a girl, I didn't really read comics growing up. You know, I watched a lot of Star Wars and Star Trek because of all the boys in my house, but I didn't really read comics. That wasn't really their thing. And so I read my first graphic novel, and I enjoyed the format enough that I'm willing to look into some others and try to find another series that I enjoy. Because this one, I think it'll be another while before we see anymore. So I do think it's important to diversify the format in which you're reading. And last but not least, I do think it's important to read nonfiction. We can find nonfiction that is autobiography, that is business books, that is self-help books, religious books. There are all sorts of different nonfiction books that you can read. And I think they are super important. One, because, you know, we're reading them for a reason. We either grow religiously, we can grow in business, grow in ourselves, or learn about a culture that we may not have known before. I read I Am Malala first thing this year, and it was really eye-opening for me to see how she was raised and the culture in which she was brought up, where women weren't supposed to learn. I grew up with a father as a teacher, and so my father was always my champion of learning, of reading, of anything like that. My mother was as well, but, you know, my father being the educator was slightly more proactive about that. Though my mom is very smart and intellectual and all of those kind of things and has always worked as well. So I think it's very important to read things that are going to better you, whether that is just scripture study from the Bible or any other religious text in which you enjoy, or whether it's reading more about Adam and Eve or just certain things from those texts or just stories that are based in your religious context. I do think that's important to grow. I also think if you want to better understand a religion, reading their documentation or what they study is really important in that because it's easier to understand why they make decisions the way they do. So almost 10 minutes later, I hope this video makes sense. It is a little bit rambly, but I hope you will look into what you are reading and what you enjoy reading and try to diversify that a little bit. Whether that's you've dominantly read YA because you've been scared of trying an adult novel, but you decide to try one, you know, by somebody like Brandon Sanderson who writes both, try out one of his adult novels as opposed to one of his YA novels, things like that. I think everybody can grow a little bit and stretch in what they're reading. You know, myself included, I plan on reading a lot more nonfiction next year, maybe even before the end of the year. I'm not 100% sure. But I plan to continue to grow in my aspects of diversifying the genres in which I read. I hope this video was helpful to some of you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. And also in the comments, let me know your favorite genre to read and maybe one of your favorite books, because I always like getting recommendations for books. Have an awesome day. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.